Welcome to Leap Into Your Story podcast, where you discover your inner story, break down the process, and meet others who've done it so you can leap into your own story. We interview amazing guests who provide powerful insights that inspire you to get your story told. Be sure to visit our website at leapintoyourstory.com, and while you're there, subscribe and like us via your favorite social media network. Now sit back, get ready to take some notes, and let's get started. This episode of Leap Into Your Story podcast is brought to you by Leap Into Your Story course. Visit leapintoyourstory.com, where you have a guide to get your story told. I'm Victoria Anderson, and welcome to the Leap Into Your Story podcast, where you discover your inner story, work through the process, and meet others who've done it. We interview amazing guests who provide powerful insights that will inspire you to leap into your own story. Be sure to visit our website at leapintoyourstory.com, and while you're there, subscribe and like us via your favorite social media network. In this episode, we're going to be discussing connecting to the soul through dreams. My guest today is Machiel Klerk, a social entrepreneur, licensed mental health therapist, international speaker, dream worker, and published author. Machiel earned a master's degree in counseling psychology at Pacifica Graduate Institute and has been a mental health therapist since 2006 and currently has an online private practice. Machiel has a fascination with healing traditions, cultures, and dreams, and has traveled all over the world to study them, and in specific, the African traditions with a focus on South Africa, where he was born. He is an award-winning local influencer in his community, as well as a global one, giving lectures and workshops in Europe, South Africa, North America about dreams and psychology, including for companies to help boost their creativity, innovation, and leadership. Machiel has been guided personally by dreams, which led to the founding of the Young Society of Utah. He has published a book called Dream Guidance. So welcome and thank you for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be here with you here, Victoria, and I'm curious in which stories we will be leaping today.
Yes, well, you have quite an assortment in your bio, so you have many stories, I'm sure, to leap into today. So, but first, let's tell everyone, we're all curious about this journey, and how did this all start for you?
Well, I really got deeply interested in dreams in my early 20s. I unfortunately had ended up in a pit in life because my dad died when I was young at the age of 10, and my culture and my family didn't know how to grieve. And I had a lot of unresolved grief that built up in this dark cloud of depression. And I didn't know that was really the case, but it also translated into a sense of lack of meaning, lack of purpose, a limited worldview. And by some fortunate chance, in my early 20s, I stumbled upon the works of Carl Jung, who gave me some clues on how to read the world better, but also how to connect with one's dreams. And then my own dreams started to fountain forward, and I started getting insights in the direction I could take in life, how to connect with a sense of purpose, reconnected with my dad on the other side, and really learned that there's a world behind the world, and learned all the obstacles that were going on in my life that prevented me from living a much more colorful life. So in my early 20s, there was this huge breakthrough, and dreams were central in it. and I've been hanging on to the thread of dreams ever since, because my life has been so much more interesting and colorful and rewarding since.
Yes. Well, you and I share a very strong common thread and the importance of dreams. In all of my books, I talk about how dreams sometimes kind of hijacked my normal waking time to alert me that I wasn't on the right path and I needed to make a change. And that was through dream time. And I thought it was interesting on how maybe even strangers, I mean, it wasn't even, you and I share another common factor is, the death of a parent, where that kind of triggers, a real deeper interest into seek out information that maybe was not kind of front and center, or maybe not of interest, but becomes very personal. And, what's interesting is I know I've talked to other authors who say, I had my deceased this or my deceased that. I've always had these strangers that have spoken such powerful truth that, it was kind of weird because, here I am. It wasn't even the people in the dream. It was just the context, what they were trying to tell me, that caught my attention.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, in waking time, if a stranger came up and said, you need to do this, I'd be like, who are you talking to? So in dream time, I was a little more receptive to what that message was, and got me steered into a better course for my life, and into what my purpose might be.
Well, it's so beautiful to hear that we share this direct experience of knowing how the dream can come in and both point positively to where we need to go, or more rattle the cage and wake us up to, hey, this is you're going in the wrong direction, or you're going to be very unhappy here. And this interesting balance between being guided and being a little bit pushed.
Yes. I do think the dream people are a little more pushier. Maybe because they know that you are in a more receptive place. Because they were really kind of, they were forceful in a gentle way, though. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And
like they used the right words, symbology that got through.
Yeah, that spoke to you, huh?
Yes.
And what you also see, I think, in following this line of thinking, what this depth psychology or soul-oriented psychology is, that we can read a lot of the manifestations in our own life, the symptoms, that also as a calling. So instead of seeing a depression as something that shouldn't be there and need to be cut off or medicated, what is the depression possibly telling? Sometimes we get depressed because we're in the wrong relationship or in the wrong job. And then depression really slows us down and makes us look down because we're kind of overlooking something. And so even there, you see that the guidance comes in the form of the symptom, trying to help us steer back to our path. And it's just a slightly different way of looking at symptoms than regular psychology sometimes does.
Right. And I think that's a very important point, because, I know people who have to take 4 different medications to get the one depression medicine to work to the other. And I'm all like, you need to be asking better questions and looking at the depression as a symptom of something deeper that maybe a pill isn't going to fix.
Or a pill arrests the symptom, and then you still be able to go to your job that you hate, and now you've anesthetized yourself to be able to do that. That doesn't mean that all depressions can be seen this way as symptoms, as a call. Some
Right.
have other
Some could
origins,
be the
but
mental or the
yeah,
chemistry balance, and that could happen from injury or things
right.
like that.
But the
Right.
majority of the depressions would benefit from engaging instead of cutting off or disengagement or
Right.
medicating.
Right. Now, I'm curious, with your practice, do you go into having those conversations of, before we dive into, medicine or things like that? Do you try to extract the real problem? Because I think a lot of people would rather not admit that they're in a unhappy relationship or a job. It's like, yeah, I do hate my job, but I can't seem to find something else. They're feeling
Yeah, yeah.
and the feeling of stuck.
Yeah, the feeling of stuck is a terrible feeling and very understandable. And I think also there, it's both a way of looking at symptoms as what might the symptom be saying, and the other is that you can see in dreams that you could ask your dream a question or ask the dream for support. And recently there was a woman who felt stuck in finding a partner, and then she asked the dream, "How can I find a partner?" And in the dream, she was walking in the mountains. It was very lonely, and she came to a little house, and she entered the house, and the house was empty and lonely, and that was the dream. And so she was kind of puzzled. And I think, and after exploring with her, the dream seemed to suggest perhaps actually finding an external person first. Your first task is encounter the loneliness that is inside of you and find a better relationship to relate to it. Don't try an external partner to get rid of your internal loneliness. This loneliness that happened to be there through generations was also in her. And how do you relate to your own loneliness? And then you have this relationship, and then this relationship does well, then usually the external relationships start changing as well, and you become actually available in a different way than she thought. So dreams give very specific advice. It's as if you're visiting this old wise healer or doctor that knows exactly what the right medicine is for you. Because I might not have thought, gosh, you should think of your own loneliness, but her dream did know. And that is why I'm such a fan of dreams, because they provide such detailed prescriptions for the journey of life.
Yeah, that's a fascinating analogy. The dreams are the doctor that knows you
Mm-hmm.
better than than any external influence.
Yeah.
And is that something that in your practice, do you have people? Do they volunteer your dreams? Do they know you're a dream kind of specialist? Is that why people maybe seek you out, because they're looking for that maybe some guidance on to interpret some of the symbology that it's
it is by now people know that I have usually when they come to me that I have written a book on dreams, that I've worked with dreams, so that there's a specialty in working with dreams and actually even broader imagination. And imagination is also the daydreams or the fantasies, or even the depression manifesting itself physically, but it's also imagination manifesting itself in the body. And what does the depression or the anxiety or the symptom has to say? And you can also work with memories, or people that have trauma usually have that the memory comes back, and that memory you can work in the same way as you can work a dream. And then you will see that the memory start changing and the trauma start healing. So in all kinds of forms, I work with imagination and from a soul perspective, like we talked about how to look, for example, at depression. And Yeah, that people know that by now. So they come 80-90% comes in that way. Another person said, oh, I heard about you from so and so. And then I tell them this is a way. And if that works, let's see. And we explore.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, we've talked about some of the modern dream theory with Jungian theory, but maybe where is the common thread between modern and some of these ancient cultures? Where are the crossover on some of those?
Well, if we would take one thread of the Jungian psychology as is one of the ways that modern life looks at dreams. And I think at the heart of Jungian psychology lies the notion that there is an unconscious, a collective unconscious. And this is a sphere of our own soul that coexists with our ego or habitual self. And this unconscious or collective unconscious would often be referred to in indigenous cultures as the other world, a world that coexists next to this world that is filled with dream beings and ancestors and guides and who knows who else is inhabiting that world, and how can you find a relationship with that world, because that world is also the carrier of your qualities and gifts and wounds. And so how can you find a relationship to that world and embody that in the here and now so that that world can flow through you? And so I think the commonality is that Jungian psychology at the heart is really has a shamanistic worldview, and that most shamanistic indigenous cultures around the world that used to be the most common way of imagining the world, this world, other world beings, how to relate to them. It would be more complex than that, but I think that's one of the big overlaps. And then in Western tradition, sometimes it has become a bit heady, where we look only at symbols and try to interpret, and this means that, which has its own value. But I think dream work is broader and richer than interpretation alone.
Interesting. So let's maybe talk about, because we talked a little bit about, connecting with the soul, and that's part of like your healing process. You've been, living an inauthentic life, and now you're getting more connected, and whether the dreams had a process in that, like myself.
Mm-hmm.
But you talk about triggering the inner healer.
Yes.
Go into a little more detail so our listeners know what does that look like? What steps involved? Is there a specific ritual that,
Mm-hmm.
That enhances that or accelerates that?
Yeah. So we all have an inner healer, and maybe there's just one great external inner healer. Yet let's say imaginally we have this inner healer that we know if we cut our body and we clean the wound, the body heals itself. And so there's an healing activity that we clearly see physically, but emotionally and psychologically it's also there. If we have trauma, by cleaning the traumatic wound, engaging with it, warming it up, the trauma, the psyche itself starts healing that. We don't really need to do that. We are being healed by this force inside of us that tries to flourish and live through us. And almost any culture around the world has acknowledged that there is this healing agent. And modern science will start calling it the placebo. And the placebo works. So you give someone a sham surgery or a sugar pill and they get better. So why do they get better? Both physically as psychologically. And that's because it has triggered the inner healer. And the inner healer heals us. And so it's a great question that you says, how do we then engage and trigger that inner healer? And usually that is turning towards, engaging with, So we turn towards the inner healer and whatever name we want to give to it. And we say, gosh, this is a problem I have, and I've been struggling with this and that. And you start asking for support and help. It can come through dreams. It can come through synchronicities, little miracles in life. It can just happen by its own self. But engagement with this inner healer, and we can go more in depth, but that people talk to it, turn towards it, that is really the first step. And then treat it as a relationship. The more you treat it as a relationship, the better it functions.
Okay. Now let's maybe talk about that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what are some of the, so you're saying it's going to happen as you did. So let's maybe break down the process of,
Mm-hmm.
so now you're aware that your dreams are not just dreams, right? There's
Yeah.
some part of maybe a reconciliation or healing process with
Mm-hmm.
yourself and maybe the outside world.
Yeah.
And that can trigger the what do you call it? The engagement of your soul with your relationship with yourself. And I guess that's going to trickle outwards, right? Because
That's very
you're
true.
seeing
Yes.
in your practice, have you seen that, once you're starting to heal yourself, maybe your clients or patients are now altering how they view things?
You mean if I heal myself, that my clients also, patients also change, or if they change
Well,
themselves
if they
to their
change,
world?
so they're
Yeah,
changing.
yeah,
Are you
yeah,
seeing that,
yeah,
maybe their perception of one thing
yeah.
has been very negative, but
Right.
because they've done like the healing, they
Yeah.
realize maybe that negative thing isn't really a negative thing. It was really just a signpost to
Mm-hmm.
help guide them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
is
So,
that,
yeah, definitely. We have we have these habitual patterns with its pros and cons, and usually we start identifying with these patterns. So I could identify with people don't like me, or I find it hard to speak up, or there's no one that wants to have a relationship with me, or other wounds that we gathered, collected, or happened to us throughout life. And usually we build a kind of an crusted response to that. And then what you see in the dream is that different characters will come in that have different states of consciousness. And when we connect to these states of consciousness, we somewhat alchemically infuse our habitual state with a different state of consciousness, by which this crusted state breaks open, and we find a new way of relating and engaging with life. So the inner alchemy translates in a different relationship to the outside world. I can give a quick example of it from myself. Recently, I visited my mom for Christmas, and we have in general a good relationship, but there we had this habitual pattern again. And I was like, oh gosh, mom, there you go again. And probably mom thought, oh gosh, there you go again. So very annoying, let it go. And then at night, I had a dream in which I saw the soccer player Messi. And this soccer player a ball came and he jumped up very elegantly with 2 feet, maybe 6 feet high, caught the ball, came down, and then moved acrobatically backwards. And I thought, that's a curious dream. Let me connect to the energy of the dream. So I closed my eyes. I felt coming back in that dream. And then I started noticing how this soccer player jumped up, and I could start feeling that energy. And I felt how flexible he was, and how his body could move. And then I started noticing, gosh, let me feel this really in my body, and this flexibility, and let me then bring that back into the conversation with mom. And so I was, the next time we were in a similar thing, I felt this messy character, and then I was, oh, I don't tighten up and go like, ah, why are you doing that? And how often have I said this? And no. But I was like, oh, there we go. Oh, wait, I don't have to go there. And so I had a different, because internally I was different, I had a completely different external world. And I could just let it slide and go on and move forward. And I think that's an example of how dream characters, whether we even ask for it or not, will come in, that inhabit different states of consciousness, that will break open our habitual state, and then we become more adaptable to our environment.
Interesting. Yes, I think that was kind of part of my, I was talking about that with my dream people, right?
Yeah.
how they have that ability, even though we don't know them, and just through that type of weird connection, that it gets your attention. Yeah. Now, when you go into like the dream analysis with people you work with, is that one of your steps? Do you have them go into the characters sometimes, or?
Yeah, I use different ways. Sometimes it's a bit more interpretive, where the question is, what would this mean? And then you get a bit of a different an answer of what would it mean that this character Messi shows up, and you get one interpretation. But what a dream, if we for anyone that watches or listens, if you go back to a recent dream or a very intense dream you once had, you will notice that that the dream is an environment. You're in a world where you have this messy character, and there's the soccer ball coming, and you engage in it. Just like this world, it's just another world, the dream world. And so the dream is a world you find yourself in. And so it's not a two-dimensional phenomenon where you just get a letter from the mystery source that you need to decipher, but it's a world. And this world is a manifestation of states of consciousness. And so you can go back in a world by just closing your eyes, feeling, noticing where you are. Is it light or dark? Is it who else is there? And then you're back in that world. And then you can feel the energies that are in that world, just like you can feel here. If someone's really angry or someone is really kind, you will feel that in your own body. And so you can, in the dream, experience the energy states and embody them. And then you feel in your body what it is like to be flexible, instead of you should be more flexible. Well, that's one. Oh, this is how I can be more flexible. That's usually more helpful and effective. And then you can also just build a relationship to these characters. There's again a different way, by which you say, whoever has visited in the dream, instead of asking the question, what does it mean, of what does Messi mean? Who is visiting? Oh, Messi is visiting. Now let's bring Messi into the room. And then I can have a conversation with Messi, or let him walk with me and see what happens. So there are these different ways that we can engage with the dream, and a little bit depending on the situation, I pick in my practice and therapy which one, and sometimes we combine. But I don't think there's one perfect way. It's just different ways, and different ways work well at different times.
Yeah, and I think maybe, I know I've had dreams where it's kind of like the opposite of this world. Maybe things are different, because occasion I'll have like a mirrored world of what I'm experiencing in dream time, but it's the opposite.
How interesting.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, well, I'll wake up and think, oh, well, maybe this is going to happen. No, because it's like almost a totally different well. And I don't know if that's just subconscious or, I'm leaving my body somewhere and going to another dimension. That's my theory on it, because sometimes it's we have like the symbology characters of like the soccer player and things, but I've had dreams where I might be in this office and instead of having a lilac colored room, it might be an orange room.
Mm-hmm.
And things like
Yeah.
that. So everything looks the same. You can't see it, but I got a messy pile all in front of me because it's a hunch. But even in my dream, I'll think, I'm not, I'm not imagining it. And I'll even make commentary. I'm like, I even have the messy pile,
Mhm.
books propping up that ring light, So,
Yeah.
but I thought this just dream world is so fascinating to me. Now, you and I and a lot of listeners can relate to dreams and different styles of dreams. What about those people out there who say they can't dream or they don't remember their dreams? What are some of the things that you can recommend to help them?
Yeah. Well, research shows that everyone dreams. Everyone dreams actually several hours each night. Yet, because our short-term memory doesn't function or works at night, we just don't even remember that we had the dreams. And the number one thing that works in remembering dreams is showing interest. So, showing interest, get a paper and pencil or a notebook, put it next to your bed. Those are the ingredients that will help people get the dream recall back. So you could go before you go to bed, you say, gosh, dream, I don't even know if you're there. However, I would love to connect. I listened today to Victoria and Machiel talk about dreams, and I thought, why not? Let me see if there's something to it. And if you come dream, I promise you, tomorrow morning, first thing, I will write you down. Now, you do that, you treat it as if you're visiting this wise old doctor or healer or friend. And then the next morning, you have to write it down immediately because your short-term memory comes back online. And if you don't do it, dreams evaporate. And I still have sometimes I think, oh, I will remember this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, no. And it's like, how is that possible? I even tell people it doesn't work that way. And now I do it again. But yeah, so write it down. And if you don't remember an image, just write down, woke up, my stomach felt tight or excited, or I felt anxious. And then you write that down. Sometimes a little later in the day, something pops up. Or the next night, try it again. Because if you show interest and build that relationship, within no time, you'll have 2, 3, 4 times a week a dream or even more.
Yes, that's actually how I started. I did dream journals that turned into just regular journals that turned into 3 books. So, but I know somebody had given me a pen because I was telling them about dreams and the frustration of when I wake up and trying to write them down. As soon as that sunshine hits me, I couldn't, or even in the middle of the night, if I have to turn on the light to write. And I don't know if you've heard of this, but it did kind of help me to have a pen that's lighted.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you don't have to turn on the light because
Yeah.
as soon as you turn on the light, your imagery of your dream starts to diminish or, like you say, evaporate quicker. So I actually had a pen with a light where I can scribble just the highlights down.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Oh, I love that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I've never tried that, but thanks for sharing that.
Yes. I said, well, I'm not sure if you were aware of it, but that might be a good tip too. I kept a dream journal for 2 years. And it was one of my mentors, friends and mentors who used to study along in detail with a lot of Native American elders and the tales of their dreams.
Yeah.
And it's ironic, she tried to get me to move to New Mexico when I was in my 20s,
Oh,
and to start like an art community, a spiritual center. She would talk to her, tribal elders about me, and it just never happened. But where there's the energy and the purpose, it will show up. So New Mexico finally did happen in my life about 20 years ago. So here I am.
yes. A great story.
Yes. So, but she's the one who would tell me, I'd get frustrated because I was having such a volume of very detailed dreams.
Mm.
And I did it for 2 weeks and I wanted to quit after 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
She says, I'm going to give you a tip that the tribal elders tell me to remind you. You do things in not your own time, but in mountain time and the way of the mountain,
Mm-hmm.
The mountain doesn't care of the time, neither should you. That was kind of the, there's a time and place. It will be, and they said at least do 2 years. So I did.
Wow.
And I just kept on going, and I didn't just stay with dream journals. I started just doing day journals because things happening at night started to connect at that 2-year mark. And
yes.
I thought life just kept getting more interesting.
Well, that's the whole purpose of it. That life becomes more colorful, interesting. We have more experiences. We can look at these experiences, and they're intermingled with day-to-day life. It's not just a different life, just somewhere else. It is there, and at the same time, it's deeply interwoven with day-to-day life, and intuitions become better. Synchronicities start happening. A sense of purpose comes in, more support from the other side, and sure, life still goes up and down, but there's the sense of purpose, and that makes life bearable.
Yeah, I definitely think that dreams have enriched, the quality of life, because I love that you said it's what was the old physician that's there kind of guiding you.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what it feels like.
Yeah, and I think we all look for some form of guidance, and there's multiple ways that people can find it, but there's for sure one that is for free, and every night there we can just step into, and just a little bit of engagement will do already wonders.
I think so. So let's talk about maybe your book. What's in your book that our readers can find in there?
Well, what I try to describe is that dreams do come to us spontaneously, and they give insights and creative ideas and breakthrough business ideas or musical songs to people. However, we don't have to wait for the dream to come to us. When we turn proactively towards the dream and ask for help, then the dream can help us with anything that's relevant to our life, whether it is being more healthy, having a certain diet, being find love, grow the business, or any challenge you have in life or want to have some support. Because I think we live with a lot of questions, and life inherently wants to help and support us. So I described in 5 steps, how can you ask your dream for guidance? And I looked at all kinds of traditions that proactively asked their dream for guidance, tested it in my own life, looked at the research that has come out. Even Harvard University has studied this technique. And in a 5-step method, I help people identify their question, how to ask it, how to create a ritual, how to work with the dream response. so that dream guidance can be flourishing in their life.
Wonderful. Well, we're looking forward to reading that book. Any last suggestions before we wrap up our interview today?
I want to encourage people just to play with this notion that dreams are spontaneously helpful, but also that you can ask your dream a question. You can't make mistakes. The other side, the wise old man or woman within, rejoices in the fact that we want to have a relationship, and you can just work it out, and you will see that you will have little synchronicities come into your life, and you build your own relationship to dreaming, and play, enjoy with it, and I hope that dreams give guidance and give more love to their life.
Awesome. Now, I do have one last question. Where can our listeners find out more about you and get your book?
Well, the book is titled Dream Guidance. It's on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and many other places. There's an audio version and the e-Kindle and the regular hard copy. And you can also, if you type in Dream Guidance, probably it will come up. People can find more about me on my website, which is a little bit more difficult. Maybe it can go in the show notes. It's my name, machielklerk.com, MACHIELKLERK.com, or go to Jung Platform. That's a company I started that came in a dream. And that is jungplatform.com, where there's many programs on dreams and Jungian psychology and soul psychology. And you'll find more there about me as well. Thank you. And of course, social media, Facebook, Instagram, etc.
Yes, sharing is caring, right? So wide and long. So, well, I want to thank you for sharing your amazing and fantastic insights today. And I want to thank my listeners for tuning into the Leap Into Your Story podcast, where you discover your inner story or dream story, work through the process, and meet others who've done it so you can be guided to your own writing journey. Remember to visit our website at leapintoyourstory.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're there, subscribe and like us via your favorite social media network. We are looking forward to seeing you next time here on the Leap Into Your Story podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the Leap Into Your Story podcast, where you discover your inner story, break down the process, and meet others who've done it so you can leap into your own story. Remember to visit our website at leapintoyourstory.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're there, subscribe and like to us via your favorite social media network. We're looking forward to seeing you next time on the Leap Into Your Story podcast.